Hello, everybody. Welcome to this year's parent meeting, 2020 parent meeting. Typically, we would do this in the auditorium and have everybody there and see the booster club and buy T-shirts and all that stuff. Obviously, with the situation that we're currently in, we're having to do things a little bit differently this year. So, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I have a lot of information that I need to talk to you about, so I'm going to get through it as quickly as possible. When you are done watching this video, I'm asking that you fill out a little form. There should be a link posted to Remind also, in addition to this video, where you can just click and say that you have seen the video. Just want to get confirmation so that I know which players have had parents or guardians watch the video and which ones haven't, so we can make sure we have all our bases covered. And because it's important to me that everybody knows what the expectations are. That way we hopefully don't have any issues down the road. First thing I want to do is just do some introductions. So my name is Stephen Hogg. I am the head varsity coach. This is my 14th year coaching high school football, my 13th year here at Kellis. I started here in 2007, and I've coached every year except for, I believe it was 2017. I took a year off. I've been the head coach since 2018, so this is my going into my third season as the head coach. My roles, in addition to the head coach, are the defensive coordinator. I also coach the linebackers. My playing experience was at Centennial High School, so I'm a product of the district. And then I was fortunate enough to play college football at Mid-America Nazarene University, a tiny little school outside of Kansas City. Now I'm going to introduce the rest of our coaching staff. They're not going to be on the video, but I want you to know who they are. First, we have Mark Kobos. This is his 21st year coaching football. He's been at Kellis, I believe, since 2004 when the school opened. So he's one of the original members of both the teaching staff and the coaching staff. He's our offensive coordinator and our quarterbacks coach, and he's also a product of the district. He played high school football at Peoria High School. Next, we have Coach Ronnie Williams. This is Coach Williams' 8th year coaching high school football, his 2nd year here at Kellis. His titles are assistant head coach, co-offensive coordinator, and he is in charge of our receivers. Next, we have Coach Pennyman. Coach Pennyman has been coaching for 6 years. This is his 2nd year coaching here at Kellis. He is our offensive line coach, and he played tight end at Oregon State. So he got some Division I college football experience. Next, we have Coach Seeberger, Michael Seeberger. This is his 6th year coaching at Kellis, and he's actually done it in 2 stints. So he coached right when the school opened, and then he also started coaching back when I became the head coach a few years ago again. So he's been here for the beginning of the school opening and now again currently. He is in charge of our varsity defensive line. Next, we have Coach Isaac Matthews. This is Coach Matthews' 2nd year coaching high school football, both of them at Kellis. He is in charge of our varsity defensive backs. So one thing I'm really excited about is we have, with the exception of one new coach, everybody is returning with us. So I think what I've seen over the years with successful programs is continuity among the coaching staff. And so I'm really pleased. We have, including myself, 11 coaches, and 10 of them were on the staff last year. So that's really, really good. That's much better than I would have expected going into this year, so I'm very pleased with that. Our JV staff is, we have 2 coaches that are dedicated to the JV team. Coach Jorge Castaneda, he is our head JV coach. This is his 3rd year coaching high school football, all of them at Kellis, and he played 3 years of high school football. Coach Ivory is our new addition this year. He comes to us from Ohio. This is his 8th year coaching high school football. Obviously, his 1st year at Kellis. He's going to be our JV offensive coordinator, and he played college football at Wilmington College. Next, we have our freshman staff. So our whole freshman staff that finished last season is returning, and we are actually going to do something a little different this year. We're going to have co-head coaches. So Coach Pridgeon and Coach Servilican are going to be co-head coaches. Coach Pridgeon and Servilican have, I believe, both been here at Kellis for 6 years, this will be their 6th year. Coach Pridgeon is going to primarily focus on the offensive side of the ball, and Coach Servilican will be focusing on the defensive side of the ball. And then last but definitely not least, Coach Harrison is coming back to help us out with the freshman lines. This is his third year coaching and his second year here at Kellis. So that's our staff. We've got, like I said, 11 members total, including myself. 10 of us are coming back from last year. So like I said, I'm excited about the continuity. We've had basically over the 3 previous seasons, 3 completely different staffs. So to have a lot of retention this year is awesome, not just for me, but for the boys and for our program. So I'm very pleased about that. Equipment checkout is going to be on September 3rd. We're going to go from 5 to about 7:30 p.m. And we're going to do it in 15-minute time chunks. There's going to be assigned groups or assigned last name, first letter of last name. So for example, one of the groups will be sophomores, last names A through N. I'm going to send out a document with the schedule on all that, because I know if I just say it here, maybe it won't get communicated as well. So please look out for that. But with the equipment checkout day, everything's going to have to be done in order for someone to get equipment. And I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One, I want there to be some incentive to getting everything taken care of and ready. And number 2, seems like a lot of times people who aren't responsible in getting their things taken care of before practice starts are also the ones that fall off quickly or quit soon. So I don't want to go through the time of getting someone equipment and everything checked out only for them to quit a week or so later and not even get cleared in the first place. So one thing is going to need to have happen is this video is going to have to be watched by a parent, and that acknowledgement form that I talked about earlier is going to need to be submitted. So if that's not done, that's the first thing I'm going to send a kid away for, is if a parent hasn't submitted that acknowledgement form. The next thing would be register my athlete. So all returning players should have done register my athlete last year, or did do register my athlete last year. That registration or that clearance expires on September 2nd. So on the 3rd, if you do not have a new 2020 clearance completed, then I'm not going to give out equipment. And unless I hear from Miss Fox, who is our new athletic secretary, that says you are cleared, I'm going just based off of what the Register My Athlete website says. So if Register My Athlete says that you are missing items or that stuff is not complete, that's what I'm going with, unless I hear from her. So if you turn anything in at the last minute, please have her email me and let me know, hey, John Smith just submitted his physical to me. He's good to go. He's cleared, even though Register My Athlete doesn't say he is. So please help her and me with communication if something gets done late. And you can check. So go before that day as soon as possible. Go on there and check Register My Athlete. See what it says that you are still missing, so that you can get everything done on time and not have any delays. The next thing you're going to have is a COVID waiver. Most of you that participated over the summer have already taken care of that. If you've already taken care of that, you don't need to do it again. But if you did not turn one of those in, that will need to be signed with an actual pen, not on a computer, not with just a typed signature, but signed it and turn that in, so we can keep that in the athletic office and have documentation of that. So 3 things that have to happen before a kid is going to get equipment. The parent has to watch the video and acknowledge that they understand all the policies and procedures and everything. Register my athlete for this school year, and then also the COVID waiver. So if any of those are missing, then I'm going to turn the kid away until he has those done. If for some reason he doesn't have them done on that day, we'll figure out a time later to get him equipment checked out as soon as we can. Okay. If you have your own helmet, so you want to wear a personal helmet that you've purchased during the season, that's fine. It does have to match the rest of the team. So we have matte blue helmets and matte navy blue, and then navy blue face masks as well. So as long as it's that color and it is has been recertified to be cleared for this season, and it's not expired, then you're going to be good to go. You do need to bring it to the equipment checkout day so that the trainers can verify that it fits well and all that stuff. Every kid is going to get fitted for a helmet by a coach, but then also the athletic trainers are going to check the fit on those helmets and make sure that they're all good, just to make sure that everybody's as safe as possible. Injuries and training room situations are going to be handled a little bit differently this year due to COVID stuff. So with the training room, things that we've typically done in the past, like get ankles and wrists taped before practice, some of the rehab that has happened in the past before or after practice, ice bags, that's going to be a little bit different this year, just to limit the number of people that are in the training room. We want to limit the exposure that our trainers have, that our student trainers have as well, to people, just to try and keep everybody as safe as possible. So things like wrist taping and ankle taping and non-injury specific related things. I don't really know a great way to say that. Those are going to need to be handled by the player himself. So if I'm a guy who has kind of weak ankles, I'm going to need to go get my own ankle brace because I'm not going to be able to get taped on a daily basis like I may have in the past. Same thing with the wrist. If I have a wrist that acts up, then I'm going to need to go get my own wrist brace to take care of that. I personally don't have guidance for you as far as what those should be. That's not my area of expertise. So I would email one of the trainers, either Jen Vlasic or Jeff Barlow, and just ask them about that. If that's something that that you think your player might need, or if you're the player might need, talk to them and they can kind of point you in the right direction with that. With injuries, obviously if a kid gets hurt at practice or in a game, we're going to get them taken care of in the training room. But like I said, we're trying to limit the kind of the extra stuff. Ice bags, we'll still be able to do ice bags, but we will need to let the trainers know beforehand that you're going to need ice, and they'll set that up for us so that we can have that ready after practice or after a game or whatever. So if a kid gets hurt at practice or in a game or not, playing pickup basketball at the park or whatever, the expectation, unless the trainer tells him not to, is that he's still at practice. So if I sprain my ankle, I don't get to stay home from practice. The expectation is that I am still coming to practice. I'm doing whatever the trainer asks me to do, which may be rehab, may not be, depends on what the situation is. But I'm at practice with my position group as much as possible, because what we don't want to have happen, a kid hurts his ankle or shoulder or elbow or wrist or whatever, he skips practices, and now not only is he behind physically because he hasn't been able to do anything, but now he's also behind mentally. Because throughout the season, we're going to continue to install new plays. Each week we do things slightly differently based on the opponent we're playing, so things like that. So we don't want it to be a double whammy on the kid where he's behind now physically and mentally. We need him around learning even though he may not be able to participate physically. So if a kid is hurt and he doesn't come to practice, unless told by the trainer not to come, then that's going to be considered an unexcused absence, and that won't be acceptable. So if you have any questions about that, if that happens as far as an injury occurs, just send me an email and let me know, and I will do my best to help you out with that. Last part of this section is with concussions. We all know, and it's kind of taken a backseat this year because of COVID, but we all know that concussions are a big deal. They have become more prominently talked about the past several years. My personal thought about concussions is, while I love football and football is very important to me, it's not more important than your kid's brain. It's not more important than your kid being able to function normally as an adult. So I'm kind of in the better safe than sorry camp. Not kind of. I am in the better safe than sorry camp when it comes to concussions. So I went to a concussion clinic, not a clinic, a doctor was talking to us about concussions, not a physical building clinic. But anyways, about high school boys with concussions and reporting those concussions and things along those lines. And they found that when talking to these kids that had concussions, they very, very rarely told their parents or told their coaches. So I'm going to do my best to communicate with them. Hey guys, you got to let us know. If you go home from practice and you have a headache, tell your mom or dad. If you wake up in the morning and you have a headache and you got hit in the head hard the day before at practice, tell somebody. It's not okay to just power through that kind of injury. You can power through a wrist injury maybe, or a finger injury or something like that, a hamstring pull. You should not try to power through a concussion, or even no matter how mild it could be. The thing that doctor did talk a lot about was the most common factor involved in a kid dying from a concussion or from a blow to the head while playing football was it being a second concussion and the first one hadn't fully healed. So in other words, they got a concussion, even maybe a mild one. They either didn't tell anybody about it, or they did tell somebody about it, but they were put back on the field too quickly or too soon before that concussion had fully healed. They got another blow to the head, and it ended up killing them. Now, obviously, those very few cases where that happened, but the point I'm trying to make is we want to make sure we are taking care of each and every situation so that we don't have a situation like that where he already had a concussion and nobody knew about it, and now he takes another hit to the head and something bad happens. So please talk to your kids about talking to you, talking to us, talking to the trainers about any issues. It's not a toughness thing. It's not that. I care about your kids past football, and I want them to be successful. I want their brains to work normally as best they can. So we need to take that very seriously, and just like I said earlier about the COVID stuff, communicate. The more we can communicate about those things, the better. All right, regarding some COVID specific stuff, some changes that we're having to make. First of all, as with everything that's going on with teaching and just the world in general, I would appreciate some grace from our end, and we're going to try and do the same thing for your players, but because we're all trying to figure this out. This is all new to everybody as far as the different things that we're being asked to do. So I'm going to try and hit on as many things as I can remember that are new or different this year. I'm sure there's going to be some things that I forget or that change that might need to be addressed later. But one thing is no extra people at practice or anywhere. In other words, we're trying to limit the total number of people at anything we're doing. So, for example, at practice, the AI has asked that no parents be in attendance at practice, not as like anything we're trying to hide, but just the fewer people that are around that could come in contact with each other or with the players or the coaches, the less likely we are to have any cases on the team. And if we have a case on our team, then we're limiting the chance that if we don't have any cases on our team, we're limiting the chances that we might spread it to another team that we play, all of that stuff. So no parents at practice. Masks are required anytime that a player is not actively participating. So if he's on the sideline at a game, he's expected to have his mask on. Now, if he, just played 10 plays in a row, he comes off the field to the sideline, he's going to be allowed to catch his breath before he's asked to put a mask on. But once he's had a chance to do that and he's, lowered his heart rate a little bit, caught his breath, he will need to wear a mask. I would recommend somehow labeling your mask. We will not be able to provide masks for everybody, but labeling your mask, because one of my concerns is that I'm going to go onto the field, I'm going to leave my mask on the sideline, somebody else is going to come off the field, think that that's their mask, and then put it on their face. So now we're sharing masks, which obviously isn't a good situation, and now when I come off the field, I can't find my mask, and so that's another issue. So I would try to find a way, if possible, to label it somehow so that it's your mask and there's not any issues with that. With transportation, there is a good possibility that when we have road games, we are not going to take all of the players. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look, especially with the lower levels. I think probably with the lower levels, we will take everybody. That could change. I hope everything I say could change, unfortunately, with the circumstances that we're in. But definitely with the varsity team, not all players will travel to road games. And that's not something that I want to do, but that is a district and AIA suggestion, again, to limit the number of people that are around others and around the team. So before we have away games, we will put up a travel list of players that will be going to the game. Those players who are not going to the game with the team, they will have that day off. So that will be down the road, obviously. I'm not sure when our first away game will be, but once that gets closer, we'll probably post that list by Wednesday after practice so that everybody knows by with some advance warning whether they will be attending the game or not if it's an away game. Coin tosses are going to be different. We're only going to have one player go out, so we still may have multiple captains, but not all those captains will be able to go out to the coin toss. We will not be doing post-game handshakes, things like that. Right now, I don't know what stands are going to look like as far as fans and parents in the stands. I don't have any part of that decision. That's done by people more important than me. Once I do know any of that information, I know they're going to push that information out, but I will try to pass it along as well, just so that we are aware. I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't know, and I don't want to be wrong about what I say. So I don't know. We won't have any locker rooms until school opens for in-person classes. So that's supposed to be September 8th. As of the time I'm recording this, if that changes, then that will also change when the locker rooms are going to be available. And I will again, as soon as I'm trying to do my very best to push out information to you as soon as I have it. I'm not withholding any information. I hope you understand that. Anytime I have it, I'm pushing it out. One thing I am trying to do is make sure that it's good information before I send it out to you, because I don't like having to go back and correct myself like I've had to many, many times over this off season. So that's the only thing where I might wait, is if the information is not solid yet and I'm waiting for finalization. Also, regarding practices with sickness, injuries, and concussions, I want to touch on those few things a little bit. In the past, I have said if a kid is sick, basically I said I want to see proof that he's sick. So I either want a doctor's note, or I want to see the kid and know that he's sick, because in the past, parents have abused that, and the kids haven't really been sick. They just didn't want to go to practice, or they didn't study for their test when they were supposed to, and now they had to cram for it, things like that. So I've been lied to about kids being ill, and so that's why I took that stance. Obviously, with this situation we're in now, things are different. So if your player is feeling sick, he needs to stay home. If you have any kind of sickness symptoms, you need to be free of those symptoms for 24 hours before you return to any team activity. So if we have practice at 5 and at 4:30 you start feeling sick, and you feel sick all the rest of that night, but in the morning you feel better, you're going to need to also miss the next practice, because 24 hours would be a full day later. So 24 hours symptom free before you return to team activities, whether you think it's COVID or not, whatever it is. If you have any questions about, my kid is feeling this way, he has these symptoms, I think it's probably just allergies, or I think he's dehydrated, or whatever you think it might be, send an email to our trainers and let them make that call. We don't want to keep kids out for no reason, but at the same time, we have to put the team first, and we can't have kids who are sick coming, especially in today's environment. So regarding COVID specifically, if a player has COVID, so has a positive test for COVID, or is around in the immediate vicinity of, in other words, living with a family member or someone else who tests positive, they're going to be gone for a minimum of 10 days. And this would be something that I would need to know as soon as possible. So if you're a parent and you test positive for COVID, but your son is symptom free, I need to know that right away. Our athletic director and our district athletic director are going to make the decision on when that player should return. Whether and I don't even want to hypothesize, because that's outside of my jurisdiction. So they're going to make that decision. But it's really, really important that you communicate that with us. If a player himself tests positive for COVID, then there is two parts to the time that he's going to be not going to be allowed to compete. There's going to be a 10-day period minimum, or even if he's symptom free after 1 day, it's going to be 10 days from the first day that he experienced symptoms, where he will not be able to return. And then once he is symptom free, there will be a 6-day return to play progression. And the reason for that, what I was told by the trainers, is that they're finding that people are having lingering heart issues after having COVID. And so we want to make sure that we can gradually increase that kid's activity level back to full speed over the course of 6 days, just to make sure that he's okay. We don't want him coming back and going too fast too soon, and then something happens with his heart. That would be obviously a tragedy that we want no part of. So in addition to stopping the spread of any of the virus to the rest of the team and the coaches, we also want to make sure that the kid is completely healthy before returning him back to the field. So So it would be a minimum of 16 days. Obviously, the length of the symptoms and how well he progresses through the return to play progression will dictate how long that ends up being. But the number one thing is just communicating with me and or our trainers, just so we know what's going on. Like I said, we have to put the team first as far as protecting people. So kind of the moral of the story here is when in doubt, stay home and then communicate with us. Even if it's not the kid, if it's a sibling that the kid lives with, if it's a parent, somebody else, an uncle that lives with you is experiencing symptoms or is positive for COVID, please communicate with us and let us know. Like I said earlier, I don't want to keep a kid out for no reason, but we got to keep everybody safe as best we can. Transportation waivers exist if you want to bring your child home from a game. I know that Mrs. Borland, our athletic director, does not like parents to transport kids home from games. But if it's something that you need to do, then you would go through her. So up in the front office, they have that waiver, and you would have to have that conversation with her. I don't handle that. All that I handle is she tells me so-and-so is going home with their parent after the game this week, and will let me know so that I know to release that kid to his parents to go home. But I don't make any decisions as far as who goes home with parents. I don't have the waivers. That's all done through the front office. Okay, practice. We are going to start practice on September 7th at 5 p.m. We should be done at 8:15 p.m. The first part of practice every day will just be a check-in process. So we're checking temperatures. We're asking several questions. Have you been nauseous today? Do you have a headache? Things like that. And if we get any hits on that questionnaire, we have to send the player to basically a quarantine room where then the athletic trainers will come and evaluate that player and decide if he needs to go home or if he's fine. Maybe he's just dehydrated, whatever the situation might be. Maybe it's allergies, and he can go to practice. So that's not going to be my call. My job is to question and screen, and then based on their answers to those screening questions, push them into the appropriate place and have them go from there. If we have a practice ending at 8:15, my expectation, especially when we don't have locker rooms, there's nowhere really for the player to go after practice and do anything, is that they are picked up within 15 minutes of the end of practice. So if we end at 8:15, my expectation is that kids are picked up by 8:30. Please, please, please do me a favor and the other coaches a favor and pick your kids up on time. We've all worked full days plus some, and just like you have, and we are looking forward to going home and seeing our families as well. So hasn't been a major issue, but there has been, it seems to be a few kids every season that are repeat offenders with not getting picked up on time. So if you could help us out by making sure your kids are picked up on time after games and after practice, that would be awesome. It's a great feeling to come out after I've spent 16 hours here at the school and see that everybody's already gone home and I can just get in my truck and go. So if you could help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. We have an acclimatization period. I never say that word correctly, but that's an AIA rule where we have 3 days and 3 days of limited practice before we can go full speed. So what that means is the first 3 practices are helmets only. So the kids are going to wear the t-shirts and shorts that we're going to give them. Fingers crossed they'll be all here on time on equipment checkout day. Day 4, they will be able to wear helmets and shoulder pads, and then day 7 of practice, they will be able to wear full pads and will be able to do everything like we normally do. So if your kid misses any practices due to the fact that he wasn't cleared on time or whatever reason he might be gone, he is going to be delayed in all of those steps. So it's not as a team each of those sets of 3 days, it's per player. So if I miss the first practice because I wasn't cleared, everybody else is putting on shoulder pads on day 4, I have to wait till day 5. Everybody else is going full pads on day 7, I have to wait till day 8, and that can extend depending on how long it takes them to get all their stuff taken care of. So that makes it more important, even in just besides just getting equipment, more important to have everything taken care of on time so that you're not behind everybody else on the equipment progression. I wanted to briefly add some information about playing time that hasn't been a major issue here at Kellis since I've been the head coach, but I know it comes up from time to time, so just wanted to talk about that really quickly. With our lower levels, so our freshman and JV team, as the coaching staffs on those levels will do their very best to get everybody on the team into the game at some point for some amount of time. That is not to say that they are going to play the position that they practice at. It could be that they just are on a special team, so they might only be on the kickoff return team. They might only be on the PAT team, something like that. And depending on how the game goes, that team may or may not get on the field very much. So, for example, kickoff returns happen after the other team scores. So if our defense is playing really well and your player is on the kickoff return team, and that's his primary role, he may not get a lot of snaps that game because the defense is preventing the opponent from scoring, so there's not going to be a lot of kickoff returns for us. But like I said, they're going to do their best to get everybody on the field at some point on the lower levels. Something I want everybody to understand, especially the parents of freshman players, is youth football experience, in my experience, is not super important moving into high school football. In my experience, so I'm not talking about every scenario, but in what I have seen is often players who come in from youth football programs who played a lot of youth football have some bad habits or some preconceived ideas about how things are supposed to happen that we often have to change here because we do things a little bit differently, or sometimes the coaches at the youth levels aren't trained as well. I'm not suggesting that they're all bad coaches. I just have seen a lot of poor technique coming from players who have played youth football. That again is not 100% of the time. I have had players who played a lot of youth football who have good technique and who were coached well. But in general, that's been my experience regarding youth football. So I don't mean this to be offensive in any way, but we here at Kellis are not concerned with any awards that your son may have won playing youth football or championships or anything like that, because puberty happens during high school for a lot of kids and things change. So I've seen many times where a kid who was a star on their youth football team, because they maybe matured a little bit faster than everybody else, well, now everybody else is catching up or passing them up, and now they're not a star, and mom and dad want to know, well, little Johnny was an all-state youth football player. How come he's second or third string now at Kellis? Well, things change. There are different kids. Different things are being asked of a position he may play. So there's lots of factors involved in that. So I just want everyone to know that youth football is over, and we're not concerned about that anymore. I hope that if they played, they had a good experience, but we're moving forward with basically a clean slate. So experience and awards and championships and all that stuff is really not important to me at all. From youth football, we're focused on what we're doing here and getting better here. And that may mean that your son plays less than he's used to playing. It may mean that his role is different than what he's used to it being. If he was one of the bigger, faster kids before, but everybody else is starting to mature too, maybe he's not one of the bigger, faster kids anymore, and so his role and his position might change from what he's used to in youth football. So I hope that everybody can keep an open mind about that and understand where we're coming from as a high school staff. So that's that. As far as the varsity level goes, at the varsity level, there is no guaranteed playing time for anybody. Your player on the varsity level may not play at all. That is not what I want. I wish I could have every kid play a meaningful amount of time every single game. That's just not the reality of varsity football or any high school football. Some kids are going to play a lot, some kids are going to play a little, and some kids aren't going to play at all. I am asking that you trust us as a coaching staff to make the best possible decision first for the team and then for your player after. So our job is, yes, definitely to care about individuals on our team, but as far as competition goes, our first priority is the team and what is going to put the team in the best possible situation to be successful. And that's how we have to look at it. That's how we plan. And we are evaluating literally every day who we think and when we think and what's going to give us the best possible likelihood of being successful. And that's how we make our decisions regarding playing time. I can assure you, I personally and have never ever made a decision regarding playing time based on if I liked a kid or didn't like a kid. That has never factored into it. It's always who deserves to be on the field and who has earned that spot on the field through how they practice and through how they play on Friday nights or Thursday nights or Wednesday nights. If your kid doesn't work hard in practice, he's not going to get on the field in a game, at least not very often, because he hasn't proven to his coaches during the week that he's going to work hard in the game. The term gamers is one that I hate a lot. I don't care if you're the kind of guy that's just gonna turn it on Friday night and Monday through Thursday you're not gonna give great effort and work hard. I don't really want you to be part of our program. I don't care how gifted you are. I want kids who are gonna show up every day and work hard because it's not only gonna make them better, it's gonna make the guy across from them better. It's gonna make the guy in front of them or behind them on the depth chart better. It's gonna make everybody better, and so that's the kind of thing that we expect is all week long. I talk to the kids about things you can control, and the number one thing is your effort. Effort, attitude, and being a great teammate are the three things that you're in charge of all the time. You're not in charge of parents, you're not in charge of coaches, you're not in charge of officials, you're not in charge of opponents, but you're in charge of your effort, your attitude, and being a great teammate every single day. And if you're giving poor effort during the week, then you should expect to not play very much on Friday. I kind of look at it like this. They're all working for commission, and their commission is Friday night. So if you're not putting in effort Monday through Thursday, then your paycheck's not going to be very good on Friday. And so kind of backtracking, we as coaching staffs on all levels are constantly trying to take the information that we have available to us at that moment and make the best possible decision. That's always our goal, our best possible decision for the team first, like I said. So we're looking every Saturday at who's going to be available regarding injuries, regarding eligibility with grades, whatever it might be, who's practicing hard, who showed us from the previous game that maybe they deserve more playing time because they performed well, they did good things out there. And we're constantly reevaluating and adjusting. A kid never has a job just because he had that job the day before or the game before. Every week, we are going to evaluate who should be on the field, who's going to give Kellis football the best chance to be successful. And that's how we're going to make our decisions. And then once we've made those decisions, then we're going to look at individuals and say, can we find a way to get this? He's not our primary guy at this spot. Can we find a way to work him in? Can we find a way to get him in on special teams? Things like that. So we do think about that. We're not all just about winning. Good grief. I hope you understand that we are not all just about winning. This coaching staff that we have right now, out of the 14 years that I've been doing this, is the staff that cares most about kids and who they are going to become, and least about the win column. And not to say that we all don't want to win. Of course, we all want to win, and we're all competitive. And we're going to work hard to get as many wins as possible, but that's not our first priority. That's not why the 10 other guys that are on the staff are out here. They're out here because they care about your kids and because they want them to be better now and down the road as men. So all of that stuff, I just hope that, like I asked earlier, that you can trust us, that's how we're operating, that we want everybody to play as much as possible, but at the same time, we're looking at our team first as a whole, and then the individual as far as playing time goes. All right, I've already mentioned a couple times about emailing me if you have any questions or concerns. My email address is shogg, shogg at pusd11.net. Sorry, the bell's ringing here. That's the best way to communicate with me about anything going on. The way that I'm going to use to communicate with players and parents is through Remind. Probably most of you already have Remind if you're watching this video, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you the information anyways in case you don't. Two ways you can take care of getting on Remind. You can get the app, or you can just do text message reminders. So if you want to get the app, you can just go to your App Store or Google Play or whatever it is. Or you can go to, if you're a JV or a varsity player or parent, rmd.at/RSK FB20. Again, that's rmd.at/RSK FB20. So that should get you set up with the app. If you just want to do the text message notifications, then you can text this code at RSK FB20 to the number 81010. Again, you're texting at RSK FB20 to the number 81010. That will get you set up for the JV or varsity. If you are a freshman or a freshman parent, please do not sign up for that. There's a limit on the number of people we can have on the account, so we don't want to have people on there that don't need to be on there. If you're a freshman or a freshman parent, it's the same thing, but the code is RSK FROSH20 instead of FB, so RSK FROSH20. So that's rmd.at/RSK FROSH20 on a computer or on your internet browser on your phone, or you can text at RSK FROSH20 to the number 81010. So that's where I'll send out changes to practice times, updates about anything. Hey, we're 10 minutes away from the school on the way back from a road trip, whatever it is, things like that will be how I will communicate with you. It's difficult to get everybody's email addresses and things change, and so we typically don't do as much email. It's going to be mostly through Remind. Participation fees are going to be due before we play our first game. So if you're not familiar with that, at Kellis and all in the Peoria district, we have a $100 participation fee per player per school year. So that $100 fee will apply if you play football only. If you try out for basketball, you'll be good to go. If you do track or baseball, you'll be good to go. Whatever you decide to do, it's for the whole school year. So that participation fee has to either be paid before the first game, or a payment plan has to be set up through Mrs. Borland before that first game. Now, the way we pay that is through a tax credit donation. Please do not try to pay the participation fee in any other way except through a tax credit donation. Even if you maybe already made your tax credit donation to a school to the max and you don't have any left, please try to find a family member or a friend that you can give them $100 and they'll do the tax credit donation in your player's name. It doesn't have to be directly from you. It just has to be in that kid's name as a tax credit donation. And here's why we want to do it that way. Our school gets allotted, I believe, $17,000 a year for all athletic programs and the band. So you can hopefully understand that's not a lot of money to go for all of cheer, pom, football, swimming, cross country, golf, basketball, girls basketball, wrestling, soccer, volleyball, men's volleyball, baseball, softball, track, and I'm sure I'm forgetting badminton. So there's a lot of activities that fall under that athletics umbrella that have to come out of that $17,000 pot. However, any funds that we bring in through participation fees as tax credit donations, we get to keep that money on campus, and that increases that $17,000 budget significantly. So I don't know exactly how many kids play sports, but it's a significant number. So we can increase that $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 that budget through these tax credit donations for the participation fees. If they get paid as just a regular payment, it goes to the district, and then who knows what happens with it once it goes there. So please pay that $100 for the whole school year as a tax credit donation. If you need to do a payment plan, set that up with Mrs. Borland. She can help you out with that. When I originally recorded the meeting information, I neglected to include information about actually what the tax credit donation is. So the state of Arizona allows individuals up to $200 and married couples up to $400 to be donated to a school, and then you can, when you do your taxes in the following year, claim that as a tax credit for the state of Arizona. So for example, my wife and I, we donate $400 to Kellis typically in December. We make sure to mark it for football so that it gets into the appropriate account. And then when I do our taxes in February or March or April, when I do our state taxes, I can put that tax credit on there. There's a form that goes with your taxes, and I get all that money back. So my the amount of my refund, or the amount of goes up by $400, or if I owe any money, the amount that I owe goes down by $400. So it's a dollar for dollar tax credit. So in essence, what we are doing when we give tax credit donations is we're getting the state to pay for our stuff, whether that's, like I said, the new pants or replacement bags on our sled, or whatever it is that we can purchase with that money, the equipment that stays here at the school. We can't use this for anything that the players keep. So if it's t-shirts or shorts that we give them that they keep, we can't use it for that, but it's uniforms and any equipment that we keep. And we can also use it to hire additional coaches. We can hire I believe it's for every 25 players in our program, we can hire up to one additional coach and pay that coach a small stipend. I think it's a $1,500 stipend. I'm not positive about that, through the tax credit fund. So it gives us more flexibility if we want to expand our coaching staff beyond what the district provides for us as far as stipends goes. And then we can also pay for that equipment through those funds. And not immediately, obviously, but eventually everybody who made those donations gets all their money back. Tax credit drive we're going to do. Last year we did a fundraiser through not GoFundMe, FanAngel. Instead of that, what we're going to do is a tax credit drive. And so we are going to ask that every player, now this is in addition to the participation fee. So we have the $100 participation fee that we are paying through the tax credit donation. This is different from that. So what we are hoping is that this is not money that is coming from parents. This is money that's coming from parents, co-workers, from aunts and uncles, grandparents, people at church, neighbors, different people like that. I know that there are people out there who would like to do the tax credit donation, and I'll explain more about what that is if you're not familiar with it in a second, but don't really know where to send it or who to give it to, and so they're just waiting for somebody to ask them, and then sure, here's $200, here's $400, whatever. So the minimum that every player is going to ask to bring in on the tax credit drive is $100, and again, that's in addition to the participation fee. And we would need to make sure that it is marked for football and under the player's name so that we can give credit to that player for that. But this tax credit money is important because we can do a lot of stuff with it. We can replace equipment, we can replace jerseys, buy new jerseys, we can buy all of the little miscellaneous stuff that we have to use for a football game. We can pay coaches with it if we wanted to. So that it's all the things that we can buy for the school. New sleds, I can't even think of very many things off the top of my head, but all of the equipment, all of the uniforms, coaches, all of that stuff we can pay for with our tax credit funds. One thing I would like to get, and I know the players are interested in doing, is getting a set of white game pants for the varsity team. Right now we only have a blue set, so I know they would like to have that stormtrooper look on the road. So if we raise enough money through this tax credit drive, that is one of the things that we will purchase, is some new white game pants, so they can look nice and clean on at our road games. So that's going to be happening. We're going to start that the first week of practice, so look for more information about that. All right, eligibility. So if you're not familiar with our eligibility procedures here at Kellis, we have a yellow card, yellow card, red card, green card system. So if at any point your grade drops below a 60, there's the bell again, drops below a 63%, maybe it's 65, I'm not positive. 65% or less, I believe is what it is, your student will receive a yellow card. The yellow card is a warning, okay? And so the very first time that they either get into that warning range or they have an F, they will get that yellow card once we start athletics. So right now, nobody's getting any cards because nothing has started yet. They only get one warning per class per semester. After that, let's say they had a 62% and they got a yellow card. After that, at any point that their grade drops to a 59% or lower, so an F, they will become ineligible for the next week's competition. So let's pretend that we had a game this week and your player had a 62% in his history class. He's going to get a yellow card for history. That basically doesn't do anything yet other than warn him, hey, you're in danger. Next week, it's game 2. His grade drops to 59. He's going to get a red card in history. all right, because he already had the warning. Even though he wasn't failing before, he already got the warning. That will not prevent him from playing in game 2 because the red cards are always effective for the following week after they are received. So he gets in week 2 the red card. Week 3 he would be ineligible to play unless before the game, and I don't mean like 2 minutes before the game, I mean like the day before the game, he gets his grade up. The teacher would then send a green card into the athletic office saying Johnny is cleared. He got his grade up to a 64%. He's eligible to play tomorrow. So that's kind of how it works. Now, I'd also like to add, it's not the teacher's responsibility to bend over backwards for your kid just because all of a sudden he's trying to get his grade fixed in 15 minutes before the end of the day, Tuesday, and play on Wednesday night. If your kid is going to class every day, participating every day, doing all of his work on time, and studying for 20 to 30 minutes per class per day, he's not going to need that from the teacher most likely. In my experience, I was a classroom teacher for 12 years before moving into the weight room like I do now. In my experience, kids who show up, do their work, ask questions in class, go to tutoring if they need it, they don't typically get into that situation where I have one day to get my grade up or else I'm not going to be able to play. That usually doesn't happen to those kids. And typically the teacher is going to be more flexible with that kid because he or she has seen the effort that kid has been putting in. If the kid's putting in no effort, and all of a sudden the day before the game, oh, I got to get this made up, I got to get this turned in. Why haven't you turned in my green card? Why? The teacher's not going to be super pleased with that, and I wouldn't be either. So kids who wait till the last minute and don't do the things that they've been supposed to do all along the way, the teacher should not have to bend over backwards for that kid. And so part of the kid's consequence for not doing what they should be doing on a daily basis might be that they don't play that week. And it's not the teacher's fault, it's the kid's fault. So please stay on top of your kids, especially right now while we're doing this online stuff. The motivation without having a teacher looking over their shoulder for a lot of kids is way down. So like I said, participating every day, whatever that means for that class, all work is turned in on time. I'm asking questions when I need help. I'm not just, well, I don't know what to do, so I blow it off. And then I'm asking that teacher if there's any opportunities for tutoring. And I'm studying on a regular basis. I'm not just waiting until the day before a test, trying to cram, or not studying at all, and then doing poorly on assessments. Now, we have a weird situation this year because typically we start practicing before we have school and before we have any grades. Well, this year, it's opposite. We're already going to have grades before we even start practicing. If a player is failing when practice starts, he will be allowed to practice. So let me correct myself because I messed up. He will be allowed to practice, but if he has not raised his grades and is not eligible for our first game, I'm going to release him from the team because he's not done what he needs to do. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to carry a kid on the roster who's ineligible from the get-go. So one more time to clarify, if a player is failing on September 7th, he will be allowed to practice and come out and join the team. However, if the week of October 3rd, I think it's September, let me look here, September 28th, if on September 28th he is still failing any classes, he will be released from the team because, like I said, I'm not going to carry him if he can't get his grades up before we've even started the season when we've had 6 or 7 weeks of school at that point. And here's my reasoning behind that. Right now, we are asking about 2 hours a week from each kid, which isn't very much. So if right now, while they are not doing real practice, with only 2 hours a week being asked of them, they are not able to pass their classes, I don't see how they're going to after we start football when now we're asking 18 hours a week from them. So they're going to lose 16 hours of free time each week, but somehow also raise their grades. That doesn't seem logical to me. Okay, I'm going to go through our code of conduct and discipline stuff. This is not my favorite part of the information I have to give to you, but it is important. Like I said earlier, it's important to me that everybody knows the expectations and what being a part of the football program here at Kellis means. As a parent, you know, as a player, they know, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to push out this code of conduct and the discipline sheets to you through Remind. Like I said earlier, I'm having trouble uploading stuff right now, so as soon as possible, I'll get that out so you can see that. I don't collect a signature sheet from parents or players like I know other sports and schools do. The way I'm going to operate is if you are part of the football team, you're agreeing to this. If you don't agree to this, then you should not be on the football team. But this is what's going to happen and how things are going to work. Um, I'm not perfect, obviously. I make plenty of mistakes and do things wrong regularly, but I am going to do my very best to be fair and consistent with the code of conduct and with the discipline policies. I have over 100 players in the program, including freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. So there are times where things slip through the cracks, or but what I'm trying to say is I'm always gonna do my best to be fair and consistent with the stuff that I'm talking to you about on here. I'm not gonna read every single thing on here. My expectation is that you will read it as well. Some of it I've already talked about. The first thing on the code of conduct is academic eligibility. I've already talked about that. The second thing is academic responsibility. I'm assuming that we are going to, at some point during the season, go back to in-person classes. Once we do that, it will depend on the situation. I don't know. In the past, we've had a study hall for any players who have a 74% or lower on any class before school. I'm not sure if we're going to do that again. I'm going to keep it in here just in case I decide that I do want to do it. But just with the situation being different than it has been in the past, we may or may not have study hall. So attendance. Players are expected to participate or attend 2 classes in a school day in order to go to a game or to a practice. So if you can't take a day off on a Friday, not go to school, and then play in the game. So it's important that you are at school. It's important that you're going to classes. So that is a policy that I know is checked up on by the attendance secretaries. I'll get emails saying so-and-so did not attend. It's a Friday. So-and-so did not attend any of their classes today. And if that happens, I can't let that player play. So please don't be taking days off. Please don't be skipping classes so that we don't have that issue. Attendance for workouts, practices, team meetings, etc. Basically says be there to everything that's mandatory and be there on time. If you're more than 30 minutes late, you weren't there. So if we have a 5 o'clock practice and you show up at 5:30, you're absent. You missed. So missed practices will result in makeup, conditioning, and/or suspensions. The conditioning is not a punishment. It's just, hey, you weren't at practice. We did stuff. We moved our bodies. We breathed hard. We sweat. You got to make that up because you weren't here for that. So it's not a punishment. It's a makeup. Suspensions are punishments, and there will be suspensions for players that have unexcused absences. So we have excused where you notify me ahead of time and I approve it. Okay. Unexcused is you don't notify me ahead of time or I don't approve it. So if you have a doctor's appointment during practice and you tell me, I don't know about most people, but I typically schedule my doctor's appointments weeks in advance. So you tell me ahead of time, I have a doctor's appointment on this day. I'm going to be late to practice. Now, that being said, it would be awesome if you could schedule those appointments so that they didn't conflict with practice. I know that's not always possible, but if possible, please do that. If that is the situation, I would really love to see a doctor's note. Now, we talked earlier about sickness. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, a regular checkup or a dentist appointment or something like that. Also, I'm okay if a player misses due to a death in the family. I get that happens sometimes during the season, and football is not most important in our world and in our life, so I'm understanding of that. Now, that being said, if a kid doesn't have an excused absence, that could affect his playing time, because if he's not there, we have to replace him and get somebody else ready. And that person may end up performing better than the player who missed, or equal to him. And if they're equal, we're going to play the kid who was at practice, whether it was an excused absence or not. So just be aware of that if your kid's gone, even for a good reason, we still have to move forward and get our team ready to play. And that might mean that he gets replaced, and that might mean that player plays more than your kid would have played if he had been at practice. Okay, unexcused absences, any circumstance where you don't let me know what's going on ahead of time. Tutoring is never a reason to miss practice. I'll talk about that in a second. Vacation is definitely not a good reason to miss practice. So Labor Day, if you miss practice for Labor Day, you're going to miss playing time. I'm not going on vacation. None of our other coaches are going on vacation. If you want to go somewhere and be back before practice, obviously that's fine. But it's football season, and so every Monday through Friday is kind of fair game for football-related activities. So if you miss due to a vacation, that's going to affect your playing time. Injuries, can't miss because of injuries unless the trainer says to stay home. If a kid or a parent says he's injured, but the trainer didn't say he should stay home, then he should be at practice. And if he's not, then that would be considered an unexcused absence. And I also reserve the right to, make a decision by decision base, or make decisions on a case by case basis, depending on what's going on, whether something is excused or unexcused. Again, I want to reiterate, sickness, illness, this season, we're staying home, we're contacting the trainers, and we're going from there. Behavior. So on the code of conduct, one of the things we have to talk about is sportsmanship and just general behavior. It's important to me that we, myself, the other coaches, the players, and parents all operate with class. I can't tell you how embarrassing it is for me to hear parents yelling at grown men on the field, whether they're yelling at coaches or officials, or even when they're yelling at children on the field. They're yelling at opposing team players. It's strange to me that people do that, and I know it's relatively common in our culture, but I can't think of another area in life where I would go to someone's place of work and scream at them and tell them how bad they are at their job, and it'd be acceptable. So to me, it's not acceptable. So screaming at a coach and telling them how terrible they are at calling plays or whatever might be said, or screaming at an official and telling them how bad they are at their job, that's really low class, and I have a really low opinion of people who do that, and not necessarily that my opinion of you is extremely important to you, but as your kid is part of our program, it does matter. So please behave, players, parents, coaches, with a high level of class and a high level of sportsmanship. We're not going to argue with officials. We're not going to demean other teams' coaches or players, or our own coaches or players. Be there to support. That's what a fan is supposed to do. You're supposed to support. So support even if you don't want to support anybody else on the sidelines, support your kid and just cheer for him and be excited for him and for his team. Lying, cheating, stealing, things like that, those are all pretty big deals to me. So I'll talk more about that with the discipline stuff, but that's in there in that behavior section. The equipment and uniforms, it gives the cost of different items if they are lost and have to be replaced by us, and those things will be charged to the student's account. Injuries, I already talked about that. Travel. Early termination, what that basically means is a player, if he decides he wants to quit the team, he has to talk to me or to his head coach. So if he's on the JV team, talk to Coach Castaneda, and on the freshman team, talk to Coach Pridgeon or Coach Cervilican. And the reason why I have to have that conversation before that kid will be released to go to any other sports later in the year is because I just want to try and talk them out of it, not in a way that is demeaning of their decision that they're trying to make or anything like that, but just because I know in my own life and in so many lives that I've seen come through programs that I've been a part of, whether it's coaches or players, how beneficial being on a football team is. Just the things you learn, the way you have to work together with other people, the hard work that it requires, all of those things, it's hard to replicate that in another environment at this age. It's hard to replicate that on any other sports team, in any job. Obviously at home it's hard to do that. So I just want to talk to them and just try to give them another perspective, give them another opportunity to maybe change their mind. If they decide that they still want to quit, I'm not going to think less of them. I'm not going to dislike them because of it. It will affect their ability to play for us in the following season, though. So if a player bails on us in the middle of this season, in my mind, they're going to be likely to do it again in the future. And so the way that we operate with them moving forward will be different than from other players. There might be attendance contracts and things like that they will have to follow. So just something to keep in mind. Tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. there is no situation where that's ever going to be okay. Um, I do want to try and help kids who maybe are struggling with those things and not just kick them to the curb and say, see you later. So if I find out about that, I am going to talk with administration. I am probably going to talk with the kid's school counselor. And the kid is going to have to talk with you as a parent. And that's going to be obviously uncomfortable and awkward. But I think it's important that they get help and not just lose a support system because they maybe have made or are making mistakes. Last thing on the code of conduct is regarding hazing and bullying, and this is a big deal. It's becoming more of a big deal in recent years. Any version of hazing, it's actually against the law, and I am not going to jeopardize my position or any of the other coaches or our administration or anybody because of any kind of initiation or hazing or anything like that. So if that happens, it's going to be taken care of swiftly and quickly and harshly. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for older kids to haze or initiate younger kids. If you're new to the varsity team, we're going to, initiate you onto the team. If I find out about that, it will be bad news for people involved. So we are not in a position. Nobody is, but we do not want to be in the newspaper for anything related to that. So we'll treat everybody with respect on our team. And like I said, if I find out any about that stuff, then we'll be severe consequences for that. So there's a football pledge on there. It says, I will do several things. So you're going to read that. And like I said, if you participate in the team, in the program, then you are agreeing to all that stuff. So there's no signature page or anything like that. It's just you're part of the program, then that's what's going to be expected of you. Real quick, the discipline stuff. So right away, you're gone from the team and can't come back. If you steal from a teammate or a coach, or if you, after talking to me, still decide to quit, I'm not going to let a kid back a week later who quit after talking to me. At least a half-game suspension and a meeting with the captains and the coaches to determine any additional punishment. If you get suspended from school or you reflect the program poorly on social media. So if you get on Twitter, whatever kids use now, and you are saying bad things about your teammates, your coaches, your school, your program, whatever, you will at least sit half a game, and then we will discuss with captains and coaches what else might happen. At least a game suspension and again a meeting with captains, coaches, and the athletic director. Drugs or alcohol, bullying, hazing, any of those things, you're automatically sitting for a game, and then I'm going to have further conversations with other people to figure out what's next. If you get assigned an on-campus suspension, so this would obviously be once we return to campus, it's 100 yards of sleds. If you miss a study hall, which may or may not happen, there's air raids involved. If you have an issue with a classroom teacher, and that teacher emails me and tells me that you were behaving poorly or disrespectfully in that class, you'll do sleds. If you disrespect a coach on the field or at practice, you are going home, and that's an unexcused absence, which you'll see in a minute, result in a suspension from at least part of a game. If you get ejected from a game in addition to the 2 games you're missing, so you're going to miss the remainder of the game that you were playing in, plus the following game, you're also going to do 2 days of sleds after that due to your participation, whatever got you ejected. Let's see. If you have an excused absence, you're going to make up the conditioning. If you have an unexcused absence, the first time is a half-game suspension, the second time a full game, the third time is a 2-game suspension, and the last time you will be dismissed from the team. If you're late to practice or late to game day activities, there's a couple things there, and I reserve the right to modify things as I see necessary. But like I said earlier, I'm going to do my best to be fair and consistent with all of those items on the discipline sheet. Next thing I want to talk about is college. So if your player would like to play college football, a couple things that I want you to know. Number one, he needs to get registered with the NCAA clearinghouse as soon as possible. That's a way to determine eligibility for playing Division I, no 1AA, they call it FBS, FCS, Division II, or Division III. So any of those have to be cleared through the clearinghouse, and that will tell you what courses you might need to take or what GPA you need to have based on your SAT or ACT score and things like that. The NAIA is a separate college athletic association. That's the one I played in. They have a separate thing, and I'm not super familiar with theirs to be honest. I would just go search Google for NAIA clearinghouse or something like that, and you'll probably be able to find what you need. I would do both if I were you. I would do the NCAA one and the NAIA one. It just opens up more opportunities for you. Locally, if your kid is not going to be a Division One, so not a Saturday afternoon ESPN kind of guy, which most of our kids are not going to be that guy. We have two local schools that are NAIA schools. So we have ACU and we have Ottawa that are both NAIA schools. We've had a couple players go to Ottawa from Kellis. So that's something that I would highly recommend. Next thing, with Huddle, I sometimes get requests from parents on Huddle or through Huddle for film from JV seasons or freshman seasons. In my experience, college football coaches do not care at all about JV or freshman video. I've never actually, in 14 years of doing this, heard any college football coach ever want to see that, unless your kid is some kind of freak of nature, and so far I haven't seen any of those kids here yet. Hopefully they're still waiting to come out. But anyways, so first thing is you need to have varsity game film if you want to get recruited. So if you are a JV player or a backup player, you're probably not in position yet to be recruited for college. Once you get varsity game film, that's when you can start working through the recruiting process. You need to have at least one complete game film, and I would suggest that you're playing, offense or defense, you're playing at least 3/4 of the time. They're not going to want to watch an entire film where you only have 10 or 15 snaps. So probably more like in the 30 to 40 range minimum. And then you're going to need to create a highlight reel. I would suggest 10 to 20 plays of highlights that you would create. That's all the responsibility of the players. The players have access to Huddle, and they can do all of that on their own. They can tag themselves in for highlights, and Huddle will create a list of plays where they have tagged themselves as it being a highlight play, and then they can go through and do all the editing and stuff. Regarding editing, remember this is their business. So this is college coaches. This is their job. They don't care about how good you are at the special effects on your videos or whatever. They want to see you play football. So slow-mo and flashy transitions and all that stuff, if they're any good at their job, they don't care about that. They want to see 10 to 20 clips of you playing good football, and probably more like 15 to 20. If you play two different positions, you might want to increase that to maybe 30 plays, 15 offense, 15 defense, something like that. Once you have that stuff ready to go, then I would start contacting schools myself. You're probably not going to have a lot of schools beating your door down, asking you to play at their school. What I have seen over and over, and was my experience personally, is go online, find a list of colleges in a state you'd be willing to go to. So let's say it's Texas. Find a list of all the college football programs in Texas and start finding out information about each of those schools. Well, maybe they're a men's only school and you don't want to go to a men's only school. Maybe they don't have an engineering program and that's something that you're interested in, whatever. Or maybe they are Division III and you're trying to play Division II or higher or whatever. So pare your list down, go to those schools' athletic websites, and they will typically have some kind of recruiting form that you can fill out and say, hey, I'm interested in playing at your school. And you'll then get onto their recruiting list, and they will then ask you for film or send you letters or things like that. So be your own best recruiter. Don't wait for people to come to you. If you want to play, then find a place to play. Regarding academics, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a college coach and they ask me, what's so-and-so's GPA or what's so-and-so's ACT score? And then when I tell them, they basically say, thanks, but no thanks, coach, and they move on because they're not going to waste their time unless a kid is exceptional with a player who's not going to meet their school's academic requirements or barely meet them. There's a lot of fish in the sea as far as college football goes, so they are going to want to find the kids who are good at football and who are going to make their lives easy as far as academics go. So take that ACT as soon as you can, and then sign up to retake it. I took the ACT 4 times, and I took the SAT twice. The more times you can take it, the more familiar you're going to be with the test, the better you're going to do. We have had players in the past where it's like March, and I bring them into after their senior year. They've already done with football. Signing day is come and gone, and I ask them, what's the situation with college football? And they say, well, I'm talking to these coaches, this or that. And I say, well, have you retaken your ACT? Well, no. Well, what'd you get on it? 18. Well, you're not going to play college ball with an 18 ACT probably, and if you're not making the effort to get that retaken, then you probably really don't want to play college football, because if you really want to play, you're going to do the things that you need to do to get it done and to get on a roster somewhere. So that's what I would highly recommend. Be your best recruiter. Make sure you have varsity game film and a good highlight film. Contact those schools. Take those standardized college tests as many times as you can. I would recommend not waiting until they have the free one here at school. I would do it on my own first, then I would take it again here at school, and then maybe take it a third time, depending on how those first 2 times go. But I would, at a minimum, take it twice. I would also recommend taking both the ACT and the SAT. I know that for me, the ACT was a little easier. I performed better on it than the SAT, even though they're kind of similar tests. So one of the 2 tests might be a little more conducive to the way you take tests and might be better for you. So I would encourage you to do both. Please don't wait for schools to come knock down your door. It's probably not going to happen. And then get that GPA as high as possible in those test scores. All right, last thing I want to talk to you about is our booster club and the tax credit drive that we're going to start once the season starts, or once practice starts. First of all, we have a booster club, if you're not aware. It's a group of parents who care about the program and want to see it be the best it possibly can be for the players. So they have raised a lot of money over the last 2 years to get us, like your kids are getting free game day shirts, free practice shirts, free pair of shorts. They're getting all those things for free. That's not a cheap thing to do for a whole program. And through the efforts of the Booster Club, we are able to do things like that. They typically are going to provide food for your players on game day. They're the ones working the grill on Thursday nights, and they're the ones selling T-shirts and doing all kinds of things behind the scenes and in front of the scenes for your kids to give them the best possible experience that they can. So first of all, regarding the Booster Club, we have to have parent participation in all the things we do. We can't rely on the 5 or 6 members of the Booster Club to do everything. Otherwise, it's not what the goal of the Booster Club is. It's not going to be the best it can be for the kids. It's just going to be okay. And those people are going to get burnt out and worn out, and then it might go away. So the expectation is that every parent, or at least one parent from every player, helps out in some way at a home game, but not on the night that your kid is playing. So, for example, if you're a varsity parent, the expectation for every varsity player is that one of his parents will help out at a JV or a freshman game, whether that means working the merchandise table or selling hot dogs or whatever they need. And then conversely, a freshman parent or a JV parent, each player, one parent, is going to be expected to help out at a varsity game, or if you're a freshman parent, help out at a JV game. That way you don't have to miss watching your kid play, but you get to pitch in, and it takes a village, like they say, and we need all the help. If everybody helps, there's not that much to do. When we ask 6 people to do everything, it takes a long time, and it's a lot of work for those few people. So I'll be in contact with the Booster Club and keep on people who aren't participating and aren't doing what's expected of them. So this isn't, that has to happen. So we have to have that participation and that help from parents. Our Booster Club president is Kelly Alonzo, so we have a new president this year. Her email is kelly@kellisfootball.org, I believe, and I'm going to double check that right now. Kelly@kellisfootball.org. Last year, our president was Sue Demeter, and she did an awesome job for us. She's still on the Booster Club, but she turned over the presidency to Kelly this year. So, and then we have other members as well, but Kelly's your point person as far as the Booster Club goes. Any questions you have about that, and she'll be the one contacting people to get them to help out. If you have any questions about anything that I didn't cover or things that I did cover that you need clarification on, there's going to be in that acknowledgement form that I talked to you about earlier, there's going to be a box for you to type in a question. And in several days, I'll make another video where I answer those questions. So just because I don't get back to you right away doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. I'm just waiting for those so we can kind of make a list of them, and I'll go through and answer those questions. And then I'll post another video with that information. So Thank you so much for watching this video and taking the time to do it. Hopefully it was a little easier than having to drive down here to the school and look at my bald head up on the stage, but I appreciate your time very much. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to coach your kids, and I know that the other coaches feel the same way. We don't take this lightly. This is not a job that I do for any kind of glory or for the money. Obviously, I do it because I really truly care about your kids, and I care about them being better men down the road than they would have been if they didn't come through this program. So character, discipline, integrity, all of those things, hard work, those are all really important to me. And I truly appreciate the opportunity that you're giving me to help you teach some of those things to your kids, because I think it's important, and I think we need more good men in our world. And I'm hopeful that through Kells football that there will be more of those, and hopefully they can then influence others, whether it's their own kids or other young men as well, and can kind of have a trickle down effect throughout the community. So thanks again. I'm looking forward to this season, and have a good day.